Tell your story, build your brand. artmedianorthwest.com. artmedianw.com. Now, enjoy this conversation with Chad Youngman. All right. Well, first of all, thank you, Chad, for being on the podcast.
Sure, no problem.
And Marley, we can hear you. How you doing? So Marley is Chad's dog, Rottweiler.
My Rottweiler.
Yeah. Let's talk about your early years. Where did you grow up?
So I grew up on the Big Island of Hawaii on the Hilo side, and grew up a lot around Hawaiian music because my mom was a part of a hula troupe there for the Hilo Hawaiians and Uncle Bunny Brown band and the K Lake Trio and a bunch of other professional Hawaiian groups for the tourists and things like that. So grew up a lot around that, and of course my older brother introduced me to the Rolling Stones and Elton John. We'd be in the bedroom and he'd pretend he's Elton John with his foot on the desk, and, and I'd be all the rest of the guys. But that's pretty much what got me started in music, just listening to the Hawaiian music, and yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you still play Hawaiian music?
I don't. It's a shame that I don't. I listen to a lot of it. But being an organ, I don't have a lot of opportunity to play Hawaiian music. Although I was invited to play with the Poo Poo Platters at one point because they wanted some authenticity.
Okay.
But I ended up not playing with them. But you can listen to the ukulele ladies in Portland. They play 80s music on ukuleles.
Oh, nice.
So, But no, I don't get a chance to play Hawaiian music.
That's too bad. So I know you play ukulele.
Yep.
Yeah?
Yep.
Your main instrument is bass.
My main instrument is bass.
I know you as a bass guy.
Yep.
But, you play drums?
I do play drums. I started on drums back in high school with our mutual friend BC and Craig Loinger, and then I started playing in church, playing bass in a bluegrass, Christian bluegrass, if there's such a thing, Christian bluegrass band with Joe Herring and Dave Grauer, and just kind of moved over to the bass, and I started with this 3/4 electric bass that was just horrible. And then Mom got me this Vox Standard bass, a split bass that I ended up selling to my friend who still has it today. Sent me a picture about a week ago, and so I was pretty excited to see it. But yeah, it was growing up in church and playing. And that's also where I learned guitar, playing in youth group and that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah.
And then you play acoustic and electric guitar?
Yep, I do.
Yeah?
Yep.
And then can we talk a little bit about what groups you've played with over the years?
Sure. So after I got out of the service, I came back to Portland, and the first band I played in was a group called Porcelain God with Billy McPhee, Carl Anderson, and Drew Norman, the late Drew Norman. And when we first started out, I wasn't interested in playing. And I was teaching Billy, the singer, some bass lines, and he went to the Dublin pub to play some open mics. And he met Drew and Carl, and they said, "Man, you're not going to make it as a bass player." So Billy's like, "But I can sing, and I know a really good bass player." And Billy begged me for at least 3 or 4 weeks to come meet these guys, and I just wasn't interested at the time. But then I said, okay, I finally gave up, and I went. And the first time I went to Drew's place, heard him on the guitar, it's like, okay, I'm playing with this guy because he's just really good.
So good, yeah.
And so we formed a Porcelain God, and then I think Drew and I, our arts were getting a little better, so and we felt like the singer was kind of lagging behind.
Right.
So we fired him and put together a group called Beldam's Lure. I'm not sure where we get our names at, but,
Okay.
but Beldam is like an old hag, and the lure, the lure. And then from there, and that was just a 3-piece with Mark Schellenberger on drums, and Drew on guitar and vocals, and me on bass. And at the time, I was writing all the songs, all the Porcelain God songs, all the Beldam Lure songs. And I got kind of burnt out. I'm playing bass, so I switched to drums. And I played for a group called Jimmy Smack and the Surgeon Generals with Kevin Darn and Gabe Adolph from Orgone Box. And we played for a couple years, but it ended up being just a drunk fest. And we started not being so serious. So I had to kind of give up on that one. And then at the meanwhile, Drew and Billy got back together, and they were writing some tunes without any lyrics, and invited me to come out to try out for the Couch Trippers. And that was probably my main rock band for several years, playing several venues and traveling and touring and such. And we were, let's see, I think we had played on the road with Floater, and I'm not sure what really happened to end the band. I think the interesting thing is every time that we had a high, the very next day or the next few weeks, we wouldn't contact each other. I'm not sure why that is, but every time we had some successful show, at Crystal Ballroom with Floater, or playing at the Roseland or whatever it's called now. But the next few weeks we would stop talking to each other for some reason.
Huh.
And then we got in. Oh, there's my dog.
Yeah.
And then we got into Drew. Kind of wanted to take a break from that music, and he created a persona off of our first Couch Trip album, Professor Gall, and then the Professor Gall group came around, and I was doing less writing at that time. Like the first couple albums, I had about 4 or 5 entries, but Drew was doing most of the writing at that time, and just writing some very good, powerful stuff.
Yeah.
And I was playing upright bass in that group, and so we recorded. With Couch Trippers, we recorded 4 albums, and then Professor Gall, we recorded 3 albums. So. My dog's
That's a lot.
Stuff
and those albums you can still get on iTunes?
You can still get on iTunes and CD Baby release, and then Spotify. You go on Spotify and listen to those albums.
Awesome. Yeah. So then let's talk about creating your own music with Drew, for example. So Drew is no longer with us.
Yep.
You want to talk about that real quick?
Yeah, sure. Drew came... It was a rapid ALS disease. He started showing symptoms, and in 6 months he was gone.
Wow.
So it's very sad. Sad for the Portland music community. And we had a big celebration covering a lot of his tunes at the Mississippi Pizza Place. And he was just he was a good friend. I've known him for almost 25 years, and he's been just a confidant and great composer and co-writer, and I miss him.
Yeah. Definitely. Yeah, so, I'm so sorry. Yeah. What a great musician he was. So anyways, I'm glad that you got to make a lot of music with him, and
me too. Sure.
And a lot of it we can still hear. So that's
absolutely
that gets to live on. So that's a beautiful thing.
It is.
All right.
Absolutely.
All right. So onwards. So did you study music in school, and then you mentioned the service? Can you talk about both of those things?
Yeah. So I started 8th grade playing the snare drum, and just kind of got bored with it a little bit. And you played with me. You and I played together for a long time, And I'm kind of a lazy musician, sort of. But I do what I can, and then I try to move on to something else. So I was on the snare drum, and then I moved to bass through church and such. And I wish I had done better at studying and learning how to read music and things, because I do everything by ear.
Mm-hmm.
And now I wish, in retrospect, I probably should have learned how to read music. But and then especially when I went in the service, because I went in there to be, when you sign a line, they say, hey, you're going to be really good at this. You don't know what that is, but okay, I'll do that. And while I was in basic, they said, hey, they needed a bass player for the Air Force band. And I said, well, I might as well go for it. So I went in, and I remember warming up and playing bass lines, and the guys coming in and go, man, you're pretty good. And then, can you do a major scale? I knew enough to do major scale. And then a minor scale, sure, I knew enough to do a minor scale. And then he had me sight read, and I couldn't do I couldn't do anything. So I didn't join the Air Force band, but instead became a radio operator, and then I got to play on bass for the pit bands for talent shows and things like that. So I played Pat Benatar and CCR and all that, all those bass lines for and a lot of Temptations, and had a great time at that too.
Definitely, yeah.
So and
cool bass lines with the Temptations too.
Yeah, definitely. Anything from that era up to the 70s, I think the bass lines all through those eras are fantastic.
Yeah, definitely. Iconic,
Yeah, definitely.
All right. So do you feel like, I think you kind of answered this already, but did the place and time that you grew up, the time period and mentors have an impact on the way that you learned?
I definitely think so. Like when I first kind of played bass in church, a guy named Mark Sohn kind of took me under his wing, and he's a really good musician, and he taught me, I think, like 3 or 4 Beatles songs, and then I was hooked, but I never did any really formal training or mentorship other than playing with people like Joe Justin and Drew, you, and BC, all the guys that I surround myself with. And I feel I still learn today when I'm playing music.
Sure. Yeah.
And learning bass lines and learning different rhythms and things like that. So, as far as mentorship, I kind of stuck with my mentor for a few weeks, and then I kind of went off on my own.
Yeah,
so.
You flew away from the nest,
yes, yeah.
as they say. Yeah. So, what music and art stories would you like to share from your youth or your teens? So, the podcast is for basically, we're all about supporting musicians and artists and creative people and being able to provide opportunities so that we can all make a better living and do our best work, hopefully, in the future.
That's cool.
Yeah. So any kind of art, music, experiences from your youth or teens, and then do you have any stories about that and like sort of how that led you in a direction or kept you away from?
Yeah, so I think one of my young stories is playing in a group called Tommy Toast and the Toe Jams. This was with Craig Loinger, myself, and Tommy Toast. And he was a Olympic level swimmer.
Wow.
And he was teaching or instructing or coaching at the local swimming pool in Newburgh, Oregon.
Okay.
And he was a musician, and Craig, who is one of my high school buddies, who works in the service now, and he's head of the sound recording group for the presidency and all these other things. And
wow.
so he's still there, but he played drums, and they met up because they were both swimmers, and we got our first gig after like 2 weeks of playing at the Green Tortoise. I can't remember the location in Northwest Portland, but the Green Tortoise is this bus that goes down to LA.
Is it Cheerful Tortoise?
Cheerful, maybe
the
Cheerful
Tortoise. There used to be one across from the Ondine building at Portland State. I don't know if it's the same one or not.
Oh, no, it's a different one then.
Okay.
This is the Green Tortoise. It's a bus, basically, that travels down to LA and back.
Okay.
And it's my first, well, not my first experience, but my first as a high school kid playing in a public place with a bunch of hippies and the smell of pot and marijuana just everywhere. And not that it exposed me to anything, but as a young kid, never seen that culture, it was pretty shocking to me.
Right.
But it was a lot of fun. I mean, and we played our music, and everybody enjoyed it, and it was good.
So there were people like going from California or from Oregon to California.
Yeah, and
I
think the bus is free.
Okay.
And so it's a part of the hippie culture between the two cities, or I think it goes up to Seattle and then back down. But I mean, it was eye-opening for me, growing up in Newburgh.
Right.
So.
Yeah, it's different than a church gig, right?
Yeah, definitely different than a church gig. Yeah.
Yeah. When I was at Portland State, President Clinton came at the time to speak in the park blocks, and the Cheerful Tortoise was there across from the building. I lived in the Ondine building on Portland State, which is like a 15-story building. I was a resident manager there, and cockroaches up and down.
Nice.
Anyways, if you didn't do your dishes, and you had that to look forward to, basically.
That's great.
So yeah. Anyways, so I believe that the bus went there as well because that was part of that sort of culture as well. And anyways, President Clinton made a remark that he was getting kind of thirsty, and perhaps he and the vice president would step over to the Cheerful Tortoise for a refreshment after.
Nice.
It was hilarious. Anyways, all right. So if you got to take a bass lesson or jam with any musician, who would be the first one that comes to mind, alive or dead? Just somebody that you really dug their music or dig it.
I have a few, probably.
Yeah, good.
Mark Hollis, who is the singer-songwriter for Talk Talk back in the 80s. And I know it's kind of a weird reference, but I like his songwriting a lot. It's very moody. So there's one. Paul McCartney, of course. I think he's, other than we musicians, I think he's one of the underrated songwriters and bass players of the world.
I agree.
Just fantastic. And Difford and Tilbrook from Squeeze. I just enjoy their writing style. I think it's very McCartney and Lennon-ish a little bit. To me, it's like the next step.
Yeah. If they kept going or something.
Yeah, exactly. And let's see who else. I would like to sit in on a bass practice with Mr. Geddy Lee. I mean, he's just a phenomenal bass player.
Yeah.
Sting. How about one more? Victor Wooten. Yeah. Just incredible bass player and philosopher of music.
I loved his TED Talk, too. Have you seen that?
Yeah, it's fantastic.
Yeah.
I've seen a lot of his videos and things, but the one video that made me think the most is his Ghost Note video discussion about when not to play.
Oh, wow.
Which, when you think of Victor Wooten and the amount of notes and
It's a lot of
progressions
notes,
he
yeah.
plays, but his philosophy on rests and when not to play, it's amazing. It's a good thing to.
I haven't seen that one.
It's a good thing to check out.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
I love his double thumbing thing too.
Yeah.
That's just outrageous.
He is.
So cool. All right. What are some of the best ways someone can learn an instrument? And I know that could be answered in many ways.
Yeah, I think, like for me, I needed to have an immediate, what's the right word?
Gratification?
Immediate gratification.
Yeah.
So I think that's kind of why I started on the bass, because if you're going to play bluegrass in a church band and you know G, C, and D, you can pretty much play.
Right.
So I think if my parents had done what they did with my older brother and sister, which was giving them piano lessons, and then they stopped, I think I would have stopped too if I was young and forced to do piano lessons. So, if I had to go weekly to piano practice, and I don't think I would have stayed with it. Sad to say, but at the same time, I wish I'd done.
Yeah.
Because I think piano, as a kid, once you get the finger dexterity and the reading, I think that's probably the easiest instrument to transfer off of onto anything else.
Yeah.
But I forgot the question. So.
That was it. Yeah. So, how can people learn various styles of music? Because we've talked about different styles, from kind of the pre-70s Temptations stuff all the way through Lennon McCartney, through, different kinds of like 80s, rock and fusion and whatever. I don't know.
Yeah, I think you have to be a listener.
Mm-hmm.
And appreciate those different styles of music. Even if you're into one, I think you need to show an appreciation to others. To get into to play other styles, I don't know how you would get into it other than opening your ear and listening. I think listening is underrated.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
It does.
So
Sure.
listening to like Gabby playing slack key guitar, you have to appreciate the different styles and the different techniques that are being presented. When you listen to bass playing, you listen to like Victor Wooten or Marcus Miller or Stanley Clark, all these giants.
Right.
And you listen to the melodic melodies that they put together and pull together off on the bass, and listening to guitar players that are, in order to appreciate, you have to listen and appreciate the different things. Even if you're not a big fan of like jazz or a big fan of even pop music, you should listen and show appreciation for it, I think.
Yeah, I like that.
Like ukulele, like when I was a kid, you had to take a ukulele class, in grade school. So we listened to a lot of old style Hawaiian music and even some like Glee Club type of music, 3-chord specials.
Yeah.
And so I learned ukulele pretty fast.
So how has technology changed music in general in your lifetime?
In my lifetime, technology to me has, everything has its good parts and its bad parts.
Yeah.
And technology for sure is one. I think anybody could record a song if they wanted to with the proper keyboard and the gadgets and things like that. I think that's good in that there's lots of talent out there. It may not be the jazziest cat playing a part, but someone who's very expressive and who has something to say can put together a song, And I think that's good.
Yeah.
And bad, because there's a lot of bad music out there. So, and people need to learn to play an instrument. And I know I talked about how lazy I am, but I know the basics, right?
Yeah.
And
well, you're an amazing player.
Well,
like it's
thank you.
yeah.
And and it's like anything. If you're gonna own a car, you need to know how to put gas in it. You need to know how to change a tire and all that kind of stuff. And I sound like my dad right now, but same with music. I think you need to have that basis in there before you really start creating.
Yeah.
But like I said, some people may not be great at an instrument, but very expressive, and you can learn a lot of new stuff. So technology it's good and bad. But like for recording, the digital mix, which I'm starting to do a lot more now, it's being a lot more affordable rather than the analog days. So a lot of people have a two channel mixer and can mix and produce music all they want. So I think that's a good thing too. I think we're flooded. With music, and the top three businesses of the world control the horrible pop music that I think is out there. There's a lot of good pop music, don't get me wrong, but the way that they control the power, I guess, and the what people are listening to, it makes me sick a little bit. But,
yeah, understandable.
Yeah.
Well, I do feel like musicians are sort of like undervalued these days, but at the same time, that goes pretty much for all the arts. It's like if somebody, and then we can look back and see, painters that weren't famous in their lifetime but are hugely famous, one of the top 10 that we name now.
Yeah.
I
think that's what I like about what you're putting together, because if you're putting together these artists of different parts of art that need some help, like someone who's really good at recording and putting together an album but doesn't know how to get the artwork out or get any photographs or things. So I think it's kind of cool how you have this community of people that can help fight against the machine, I guess.
Yes.
Yeah.
So you also, speaking of art, you do graphic design and web design, and you do cover art for albums and different things like that.
Yep.
Can you talk about that a little bit?
Sure. So I have my own little recording studio with Pig Farm Consortium and Cool Beard Media. So we put out, in fact, we just released the Jack Maybe Project's third album, and I did all the recording and editing and mixing and mastering through Craig Lowinger. And they have an artist, and I did all the CD layout. So I've also done one for April 5th, which is a group with John Huckfeld, who's a big Portland bass player with Elvis Presley, or not Elvis Presley, sorry, Jesus Presley band. Okay. And Gravel Pit and those.
It's easy to get those mixed up. I understand.
You can say, Jesus and Elvis, they're kind of the same. So, but and I helped them do their album artwork and get it replicated and things like that.
Very cool. Yeah. Nice. Have you done graphic design professionally for other projects, or is this mainly as music art need?
Yeah, I've done logo designs for other people and web designs, websites and things like that. And my approach is simplicity. So, you're not going to get a over detailed kind of representation. And I think a lot of people like that.
Yeah.
So
I think it's great.
Yeah, I think it works out good.
So how do you enjoy creating or learning music today?
I enjoy it. How do I enjoy it?
Yeah, maybe we could rephrase that question.
That's a good question, because a lot of people think that writing music is work, and I think music is is every part of life, right? Whether you're into music or not, and I don't know if music represents life or life represents music, but to me, they're kind of the same. Because as you go through life, you had hardships and you have great times, and I think music can represent that mood or represent that time in your life. And I think for me, it's hard to figure out which what crosses over to which, because those hard times could be an offbeat piece or maybe not completely in tune piece, but there's still music there, and then when you have harmony and your life is going good, you've got a good rhythm and you've got great harmony and everything's peaceful. I think, like I said, I think it mimics life, and music mimics life, and life mimics music. To me, there's no separation to it, So when I go to write stuff, I don't write. I write stuff about stuff that I know. And I don't try to force a song, and so some influences from my life may be involved in that, but I don't literally write like a specific song for a specific reason. My wife would argue, how come you don't write a song about me? It's like, that's not how I work. I like, a lot of my songs are total, like I got a couple political songs in the Professor Gall group, and some life experience songs in the Cow Trippers, and just like I said, it just kind of goes along and it kind of flows. So I don't call it work, I just call it life, I guess.
Okay. Well, I feel like when you try to force it, it comes out
unnatural
and sounding maybe contrived in a way.
Yeah.
Going back to learning ukulele in elementary school, do you think, just hypothetically, if, let's say Jeff Bezos got the great idea of, hey, I'm just going to send ukuleles to like every child under 10 years old in the world, do you think that in addition to like some sort of structured learning where they can learn a few songs would kind of end wars and I don't know.
Yeah.
It's
I think I'm going to be the
devil's advocate.
Yeah. Well, no, I'm going to be the half full kind of guy.
Yeah.
I think that could make an impact, because I think when people are into music, they have a different mindset. So I think they're more open to ideas, and whether they're political or social or whatever. I think they're more open to to the chaos that is life. I don't know how to say it.
Oh, that's actually pretty.
It's
well put.
Yeah, I think that if all kids were to be in some kind of music program, I think it'd be good. I think, like I said, I think you have a different mindset when you get into music.
Yeah.
I haven't met. No matter where you're at, you're going to meet an asshole once in a while.
Sure.
But I meet less of them when I'm jamming with other musicians. So.
Yeah, it's funny how that works.
Yeah.
Huh? Yeah. All right. Is creativity or skill more important as a musician or an artist?
Well, as I've said before, I've been kind of lazy, so I have to depend on my creativity I've told you before, in when we play covers, I can't play other people's bass lines, right? I like to play my bass line.
Yeah.
So
you can. I've heard you do it.
Well, I follow what I think is important, but I think creativity to me pushes the boundary, and when you're structured and you're fit within these walls of constructive music writing,
right?
I like to challenge it as much as possible. So when I wrote music in the Cow Trippers, and we put a lot of things that probably shouldn't go together, but like I love the Devil's Chord, the
tritone.
The tritones, yeah. I just love it. I probably put it in way too much of the music, but
well, the thing is, it's part of the dominant chord, anyways, and the diminished. So it wants to resolve, though.
So I think creativity, like I said, pushes the boundaries, and you're not succumb to the laws.
Yeah.
In that boundary.
Yeah. Well, I think theory is there as a guideline. It's not necessarily the end all be all, and music is patterns and rhythms and melodies, and it's not, people like Hendrix and the Beatles didn't learn formally,
right?
But they did great work with what they did learn, what they picked up over the years. Whether that be, the four of them getting on a bus and going to the next town and saying, knocking on a guy's door and saying, "Can you show us B7?"
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I mean, the Beatles to me is a perfect example of when you listen to their early stuff. I mean, it was all new, right?
Right.
So, but their progression of their music writing, to me, that they always rose up to the challenge of putting out something new and different, and that's how my writing. I like to think that's how my writing and my creativity works.
Yeah. Well, I think it's beautiful to just be able to sort of embrace like something different and try it, even if it falls flat on its face. Like if you don't try it, then you're not being creative. You're not pushing any kind of boundaries, and everything's stagnant and just is what it is. So
there's my dog.
Yeah, there's your dog. What are some difficult times you've faced as a musician?
I think the most difficult times, probably getting to a spot where you hit a wall, and the idea that you can make it as a living as a musician, and realizing if you want to eat more than top ramen and Spam, you might need to have a job. So I think those are my lowest points.
Those are the painful.
And then once I got used to the idea that I need a day job to support my night job, it took me a while, but then I eventually was okay with it. And because I was still doing what I loved to do, which was play music, and still able to be a single dad at the time and take care for my kid. And so once I got into the groove and accepted it, it was okay, because I still went on tour with the Cow Trippers and Professor Gall, but the realization that you're not making it as a paid musician, it could be frustrating.
Yeah. Agreed.
Yeah.
So your son Trin is also a musician.
Yep.
Quite well known and very good.
Yeah.
In these parts.
Yep.
Yeah. You want to talk about him a little bit?
Sure. So when he was young, I bought him the crappiest guitar you could possibly find. But he showed a little interest in it. But then eventually he decided to take a guitar class in high school, and I didn't push him. I think if I pushed him, he probably wouldn't have gone that far, as we talked about before.
Yeah.
But he started liking it, got better, started taking more classes, and went to Portland State as a musician. I can't remember what his performance, I think, and became a classical guitarist. And then he started his own band, the Jack Maybe Project, which we talked about a little early. We just came out with an album. We're playing March 3rd at the Doug Fir for his album release. So this is his third album. And he's doing really good. I mean, he was just on KBOO promoting the show and things like that, and he's living the life. And hopefully he can take it where he wants to be comfortable, whether it's a day job and working at night, or hopefully selling some CDs and living large on an indie album or indie label somewhere. So
cool.
Yeah.
Well, he's a great musician, and I definitely wish him awesome luck.
Yeah.
So since you're a recording engineer, producer, and graphic designer as well, how valuable is it having skills and knowledge in several areas at the same time? Like sort of diversifying your...
I think it helps quite a bit, because when people come with a project with some skills in some of these different areas, I can picture what the outcome's going to be, and both from a graphic design and the music, I can kind of picture what the end result will be and present it back to whoever I'm recording, and hopefully I got it right. If not, then I can alter it.
Sure.
But I think it helps to have some skills in different areas to help encourage the artist, especially if the artist is recording and not feeling something. Being open and honest, and knowing how to write, and knowing how to go through a structured melody or something and help working it out helps quite a bit when during the recording process.
Yeah.
And the editing and the mixing and things like that.
Because everybody's got limitations on their skills, somewhere, whether it's, they can't quite hit that note that's way up there, or their melody is a little sounds a little unsure in this part or whatever.
Exactly.
So being able to hear that right away and know how to navigate those waters.
And and navigating how to bring it up without hurting anybody's feelings,
crushing people's souls.
But I think a lot of that helps in having that different kind of experience to help the project along.
So, how important is music to film and video storytelling?
I think it's huge. Think about your favorite movie. You might not remember all the parts, but you remember what the song's in it, right?
Right.
And even if it's not a structured song, if it's just background music, it helps sets the mood, sets the environment. So I think it's a huge part of the writing process. If you're going to do a movie, you've got to think about the back end music. And I love the satirical stuff, or the non-compliant stuff where it's happy music but it's a horror picture. Right? So I like that kind of stuff.
Sometimes it can be really powerful.
Yeah.
It's just like this peaceful, calming melody, and this just like disaster is striking, the world's exploding or whatever.
Well, I think Quentin Tarantino does a good job of putting those old 70s music in there, and,
oh my God.
And it's part of the story.
It really is.
Yeah.
It's incredible. Yeah. All right. What are some of the best concerts you've performed in?
That I've performed in?
Yeah.
One of my favorite shows, we're playing in Mr. T's. So it wasn't a big show, but Mr. T's down in L.A., which, have you played there before?
No.
So basically, it's a bowling alley, right? And while you're playing in the middle 4 lanes, there's people bowling on each side of you. And Mr. T, the guy who owns it, was there while we were playing, and he's been there for...
The actor?
No.
B.A. Baracus?
No. Just the random dude that owns Mr. T's, the bowling alley. And while you're playing there, you see all these, Pearl Jam's played there, Nirvana's played there. You see all these posters, and Mr. T, the owner, stays and watches every show.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing. So that's one.
That's memorable.
Yeah, the other one is the Stork Room outside of Oakland. It's I don't know if it's still there, but we played there, and it's Christmas and Halloween 24/7, 365 days a year. Wait, is there 365 days in here? Yeah. But, and it's just a weird place. And, we jam-packed that place. So I like thinking all the weird places we played at. One of my favorite stories is playing at Taylor's in Eugene, Oregon. And we were playing during a basketball game or something like that. So there wasn't a lot of people at the show. In fact, I think we only had maybe 2 people in the whole place. But the show must go on, and we played. Right. And then I noticed that the guy that was dancing to our music would go outside and beg for money, and then come back in to buy a beer. And he'd dance, and he'd go outside and beg for money. Then he'd buy a beer, and then he'd start dancing again. So, those are the kind of memorable shows that I think of.
Wow. Yeah. That's good. So how well does the system work for people and for musicians, creative artists, you kind of spoke about this already, but if you want to expand on that.
Yeah, the system itself is so, I don't know. The system, I think, fails musicians. And I think if you're an artist and you've got some good backing and things like that, you can do well. I mean, there's the Taylor Swifts and the Justin Timberlakes of the world out there, but the system fails the independent musician and musicians that are contributing to other artists.
Yeah.
And so I don't know what to say. It's frustrating. And then when I'm trying to do an indie label or independent recording, we're back to technology. Technology is great, online, internet, getting your stuff out that way, but you still have to market yourself.
Yeah, you're still obscure if nobody knows about you.
Right. And so there's still a lot of work to be had there. But it's a good way to get your stuff out quickly with technology and the process. But the powerhouses that be, they just don't. I don't know. I guess it's hard for every generation, and
sure.
And the more populace we have, and the more music we have out there, which I think is great to have a lot of it. But I just think the big wigs are missing their mark.
Yeah. Okay. In a perfect world, how would you like to earn a living? Where would you like to live? What type of hours would you put in? Would you travel? And if so, where?
I think I'm enjoying being behind the board the most these days. So I think if I had the perfect job that I want would be to record. Not even mixing that much, although I'd like to finish the whole process. But I love tracking. I love putting tracks down for other people and other bands, and I think I would do that. And I'll probably live here in Oregon. I'd still love Oregon. Everything in Oregon represents, and Portland's still the only place you can be a clown and make money. So I think you can do that as a musician decently. So I'd probably do it here in Portland, although the cold kind of gets to me and the rain gets me depressed a little bit. But,
sure.
But yeah, that's what I would probably have some kind of recording,
So what part of the tracking do you like? Is it the whole, setting up the mics, getting the sounds dialed?
Working to get the right sound of the drums and the bass, and utilizing the space as much as possible. I need to learn a little more about acoustics of the room. And every album that I do, I'm on my 9th album, 10th album, I get a little bit better.
Yeah.
And so the learning process for me has always been, trying new things. And it kind of goes back to our theory about music. It's like, I'm not a structured learner, so I don't have any boundaries, and I'll try sticking a mic way on the other side of the room if I think it'll be good.
Right.
But,
well, I think that's incredible though, because if you think of the difference between a Stradivarius violin versus the drum tracks on When the Levee Breaks or something like that. I mean, that's just, they're two different ballparks, but they're both brilliant in their own way.
Absolutely.
So, yeah.
Yeah, that's a good way to think of it.
Is there any place that you would like to live for 1 to 6 months other than where you are now?
I think England would be good.
England?
Yeah. I still think there's there's some good indie music come out of England right now. That I would love to have a small, take a little Zune and record these small groups. I have a dream of converting an old trailer into a recording studio.
That's awesome.
And just going across the United States, and finding small local bands in the smallest towns and recording them. And, if I could afford to do that, I would do that. I think it'd be interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can't remember what it's called. There's an artist, John Fulbright, that taught at the songwriting camp I went to in Sisters one year, and he's a young guy.
Yeah.
but there's some videos of him. It's like, live in the trailer or whatever. And there's video of like he and the band recording, and like it's just the back of, a Winnebago type thing, not even a big one. It's just,
yeah, that would be
but
cool.
yeah.
I would love to do that. I would go to small towns.
Yeah.
And find, some, singer, songwriter, and just have them record and
Cool.
And be independent label.
Yeah.
Something like that.
Yeah. That's awesome. Okay. What current or future plans do you have for music, arts, creative works, or business for that matter?
Well, I'd like to keep recording people who don't have a recording opportunity. I know that's difficult because everybody's got portable recorders these days, but I have enough equipment to help get someone to a full album, recording drums and recording everything. And I've been doing it for very cheap, sometimes for free, to help that group get their albums out and those types of things. So I'm looking for, right now I'm looking for some musicians that are at that point.
Yeah.
So that's kind of what I'd like to keep doing right now.
So can you talk about where people can reach out if they're interested in that in the area here?
Yeah, so if you reach out to me, the best way is probably email.
Okay.
chad.youngman@gmail.com. And there's my dog in the background.
Yeah.
chad.youngman@gmail.com. Just send me what your project is and what you're looking to do. If you're a solo artist and you don't have a band and you need a band, that's the whole idea of the consortium, is that people that help other people record their stuff. So at least that's what I've been trying to start, and people can hopefully take advantage of that.
Yeah. So that's the Pig Farm Consortium.
Yep.
And then there's also Cool Beard
Media. Not sure why I kept the Cool Beard name, but somebody in Vegas called me Cool Beard, and everybody laughed and thought it was funny. So, but Cool Beard Media is the graphic part of it, and Pig Farm Consortium is the recording piece of it.
Very cool.
So.
Awesome. So what bands and companies have you worked with over the years? We've already talked about bands to some extent, but if anything else comes to mind, feel free to, because I'm sure you probably, just filled in for a number of other bands, if you want to mention that. And then I think you did is it correct that you did a workshop with one of James Brown's drummers at one point in time?
Yeah, Eric Brown.
Yeah.
And that was an interesting experience because we didn't really practice for the lesson or whatever it was, but the showcase. But I would just follow his beats and he was such an easy drummer to play with, and just amazing drummer.
Sounds so good.
And we had Scott I can't remember his last name, Pellegram, who's an outstanding drummer. He was there, and Eric was actually amazed by Scott's playing. So it was pretty. And then so Scott had we invited a bunch of bass players to do a clinic through Scott as well. So, but I've got to play with the Rock Voices with you and BC.
Portland Rock
Voices, which was a lot of fun. A band called Pinochle, played drums in that. Bev and the Boys. I can't remember half the people I played with.
And then what about other occupations and jobs that have...
So as I told you, I had a day job.
Yes.
So I worked with GE Healthcare for many years, Columbia Sportswear, as a database manager. And so a lot of ITIS stuff. And you meet a lot of musicians in that field, by the way.
The ones that wanted to make money?
Wanted to make money, yeah. Right, exactly. A lot of keyboard players in the engineering staff.
Yeah.
So it's pretty funny.
It's funny how that works.
Yeah.
What would be your advice to 16-year-old Chad Youngman if you could give that younger version of yourself some advice?
That's a really good question. I think the biggest advice I would have is stick with your dreams. And the reason why I say that is because I wanted to be a sound engineer early on, and I had forces against me saying that no, that there's no future in it, and I, I'm doing what I wanted to do then now, but I've had the long road to get there, and I wish I had stuck with it back then, and then just enjoy life. Life is such a hang up, and like I said, life mimics music, music mimics life, and I just wish I could have gone with the flow a little bit more.
Well, I think one thing that's cool about that is that you're doing it, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
it's
that's
never
true.
too late to start.
That's very true. I mean, I've been playing music in Portland area and West Coast for almost 25 years now, and I have no regrets for sure. And playing with Drew and playing with you and BC and lots of other guys. So no regrets whatsoever.
So how do musicians, creative artists keep from being obscure or obsolete?
That is a great question, and I think people need to, like we said before, you need to be able to challenge yourself into creating something, not for the sake of creating something different, but for the sake of exploring yourself and seeing where you can go with your own music. If you play the same old music over and over again, you're not challenging yourself and you're not making it interesting,
Yeah.
And, and to change your music just for the sake of changing your music, it needs to be genuine still,
Yeah.
So you need to challenge yourself, but it needs to be in a genuine way. And then how do you make yourself non-obsolete? That's a good question because, people like different things at different times, and music is a big circle like everything else, and it'll come around to something simple or go through a country phase or going through this now, this banjo phase and folk music, and when is rock coming back around the circle? I think it's interesting.
It is, yeah. And I think there's great music in every style. It's not just
Yeah,
absolutely. It doesn't have to just be folk music or rock or country or
Right.
metal. Should musicians and creative artists just go for it or get a stable job and do their art on the side?
Well, like I said, that was a hard thing to learn.
Yeah.
In order to support my craft, I had to support myself, my family. But I think you need to have a good balance.
Yeah.
And you need to be able to live within and be satisfied with how you're living, to keep your craft going while still contributing to your life. And if you want to go for it, man, go for it. And
If
go
that's
for it
the only thing you're feeling, then that's going to work.
Then go for it. But you got to be happy with eating eggs and top ramen.
I love eggs.
Yeah, me too. I did for a long time.
Yeah.
But I think if you're going to go for it. But it's tough to describe that because when I was young, what we talked about before, I wanted to be a sound engineer.
Yeah.
But I didn't have the support behind it. But I should have gone for it, right? So I don't know how to answer that one.
I think you did.
All right.
Yeah. Should musicians and creatives learn business? Why or why not?
Yeah, I think that they definitely should learn business. I think it's important to have a good basis, especially when you're trying to promote yourself, and especially with the changes in how business works. You got to know a little bit about it all. I mean, unless you're hiring someone in, which most musicians probably can't afford, to take on a lot of that responsibility. I think like Trent has done, my son Trent has done a good job of understanding what the business part, being ahead of the band and writing the music. And I think he's done a good job of learning a little bit more about the business so that he can pay his musicians and get into the right internet or intranets distribution, getting the right shows, working with the right bands and labels and things like that. So, if you can be a creative musician all you want, but unless you know part of the business to get out there and get yourself promoted, it's a tough life.
Yeah. What skills do you think are important for everyone to learn? This could be taken as musicians, creative people, or just everybody.
I think some of the most important ones, and no matter what, is you need to have some social skills and social level skills, especially if you're trying to promote yourself or you're trying to get a good job or anything like that. I think you need to have good social functioning to be contributing to, whether it's to your own craft or to a business or whatever. And I think you need to be a little bit, you need to take a little bit of risk.
Can you expand on that, a little bit of risk?
I mean, if you're not willing to take the risk, and like when you have a new song, and you're not willing to get it out there, then what's the use of doing it, right? Mm-hmm. If you're not willing to expose yourself a little bit and let yourself go and take that risk, and no one's going to listen to you. So why put all the energy into writing music and playing if you're not willing to get it out there, I guess.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
Do you enjoy traveling? Is that part of something that you...
Yeah, I've enjoyed traveling, both, when the Cow Trippers were on tour, going to San Antonio and seeing the Steve Ray Vaughan statue in the park when we were lost. It was like a beacon in the sky for us, or playing in Helena and Jeff Ament there, I enjoyed that too, but I especially enjoyed going on vacations.
Yeah.
So
is that typically road trips, or do you fly different places?
It was all road trips.
Road trips,
yeah, in the stinky van and stinky bus, but it's. I mean, when the road camaraderie, and going and checking out new places, meeting new people, and meeting different bands with different sounds, and especially when you run into a band that you really like, and then you start a friendship, and then you tour with them other places, and to me, it's all great.
Very cool. Any favorite foods that you like to eat or cook, and local restaurants that you recommend?
Local restaurants. Well, I'm a big steak eater.
Yeah.
So any place that serves steak, I recommend.
How about steak at different budget levels?
Steak is steak to me, man.
Okay.
I'll eat a steak no matter what. But bringing back the Hawaiian 808 up there by 26 and 217. That's one of my favorite places. Yeah, I'm just not that interesting.
That's not true. No, that's stuff I didn't know that. All right. So here's a big one. How do we solve the world's problems?
How do we solve the world's problems? One is, I think we need to forget about the past. I'm not saying that we should ignore the past. What I'm saying is we need to get rid of old mindsets. The way we solve the world's problems is to change their mindset. So they need to get rid of the idea that race is an issue, and live. I mean, if everybody played music, like we said earlier, maybe this would be better. But people just need to listen to each other and respect each their cultures, their way of life, their living. And we got to stop categorizing everything. We want everybody to be equal, but we keep putting people in boxes. And we need to stop that, because the more you put people in boxes, the more you separate people from each other. And, we're supposed to be one big human race, but we keep defining what that is. And when we start doing that, it just becomes convoluted.
Yeah.
And just people need to be nicer to each other. I don't understand why, nicer to animals for sure, nicer to each other. Why people need guns, I don't know. I don't need a gun. Why people rob each other, I don't get that mentality. And I wish we could, like I said, change people's mindsets against that.
Yeah.
People there for the quick buck or whatever. It's like, yeah, it just drives me bonkers to think about.
Thank you for that. Can music and the arts help alleviate violent crimes or solve the sources of violent crimes?
I think you can do a lot of good in that. People are just busy. People are learning an instrument, or people are playing, but I also think that if you take it in the wrong direction, white supremacist bands, rap artists,
yeah,
to me, they're utilizing a beautiful thing called music to
segregate and
to segregate and promote hate. And,
yeah.
I'm all for freedom of speech, but not for freedom to be mean.
Right.
Or stupid.
Yeah, that says a lot. Are there any questions that I should have asked that I didn't?
No, you asked a lot of questions, and I'm not sure if I gave you good answers, but no, I don't think so. I think you asked all the right questions, and I look forward to working with you to get more artists on these podcasts, and together to work with each other to support and provide services that maybe they don't have or are unsure of, and also help you with providing my studio to a lot of people to record those types of things. So
yeah,
that's what I'm looking forward to.
Well, thank you very much for your time
and
for your wisdom.
Oh my gosh.
It's true. It's there. There's wisdom,
Wow.
You have to get to be at least 40. Yeah. And then it starts to sink in a little bit.
Well, I'm above 40.
Are you?
By 10 years. But, when you think on the spot, I have a hard time articulating what I want to say.
But, same here.
But I enjoyed it. It was very good.
Well, thanks, Chad. And tell folks where they can find you on the internet if they...
Yep, www.coolbeardmedia.com. You go out there, you can find my website and the latest release from Jack Maybe projects on there. And then Facebook, the Pig Farm Consortium on Facebook as well.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Find out more at artmedianorthwest.com. ARTMedianw.com.